So I think it's 5:04, so I think we can start. Welcome everybody. I am Fabio Montagnino. I am the head of innovation at the Cyprus Institute, and I want to welcome you to this event that is part of the collaboration between the Cyprus Institute and the Embassy of Italy in Cyprus. The occasion is the Italian Research Day in the World. That's an initiative by the Ministry of Education, University and Research of Italy, together with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Ministry of Health. It should have been in April, on the 15th of April, but due to the pandemic, it has been postponed. So we decided together with the embassy to postpone it in June and to link it with the Enrico Fermi Lectures. That's an initiative, a series of talks that are bringing in Cyprus scientists, Italian leading scientists, to talk about cutting edge topics. And this is showing the collaboration, the continuous cooperation between Italy and Cyprus, also in the field of science and humanities. That's also part of the COP26, the climate talks that are streaming from the Paris agreements, because the topic of today is coming from, let's say, the crisis of the coronavirus, but we are looking at the more and broader crisis of the climate change, and we decided to link these two topics and try to find hints and suggestions in this crisis to face the future. The president of the Cyprus Institute, Professor Papanikolas, unfortunately couldn't be with us because there is a parallel session of the Academy of Science of Cyprus that he should chair. Therefore, Dr. Jarreau, that is our assistant vice president for Institute Affairs, will deliver a welcome in his name. And after Dr. Jarreau, His Excellency, the Ambassador of Italy, Dr. Andrea Cavallari, will welcome us as well. So, Nick, that's your time, and take the floor.
Thank you, Fabio. Professor Butera, Your Excellency, Ambassador Cavallari, distinguished guests and dear colleagues. I think I'm the only non-Italian in the panel today, but it's really an honor to host this, which is the fourth installment of the Enrico Fermi Lecture Series, which Fabio mentioned, which is jointly organized by the Cyprus Institute and the Embassy of Italy in Cyprus for the last couple of years. In the past, this lecture series has featured such distinguished speakers as Professor Antonio Sgamelotti, who is a Professor Emeritus at the University of Perugia, Professor Ettore Fiorini, Emeritus Professor at the University of Milano, Bicocca, and both of them are also, of course, members of the prestigious Accademia Nazionale dei Lincei. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Another eminent speaker from this lecture series was Professor Massimo Ingusio, President of the Italian National Research Council, the CNR, with which we have very close ties. Professor Federico Butera, who is here with us today, virtually at least, is of course a prestigious addition to this exclusive list. So the Enrico Fermi Lecture, of course, is only one of a multitude of research collaborations that we have with leading Italian institutions, not just CNR, but also the Energy Agency, ENEA, private consortia such as ARCA and many others, as well as our long-standing collaboration with the Italian Embassy right here in Cyprus. Our collaboration with Italy, which spans the last decade, pretty much the whole existence of our institute, has covered a wide range of subjects, but in particular, the focus has been on renewable energy, on the built environment, which is very appropriate for today, and on archaeological science. We've done projects together, we've built infrastructure together, and we have a large group of Italian staff, many of whom you can see here at the Cyprus Institute, who act as bridges with the institution back in their home country. I would particularly like to salute here today my colleagues Fabio Montanino, Professor Salvatore Carlucci, and Mia Trentin, and to take this opportunity to really salute their fantastic contributions to the research output of the Cyprus Institute. The COVID-19 crisis, apart from changing the ways we live, as we will see later today, has also forced the cancellation of many scientific events this year. But we decided together with the Italian Embassy that this would not put an end to the Enrico Fermi Lecture Series. And so here we are today, celebrating once again the close research ties between Cyprus and Italy. So without further ado, I will hand the floor back to my colleagues who have much more interesting things to say than I do. And I'm sure we will all emerge from this session a little wiser and a little more hopeful that there are solutions available for sustainable development, drawn from the present and from the past. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Nick, and I give the floor to Andrea Cavallari, Ambassador of Italy in Cyprus.
Thank you, Professor Montanino. I will be extremely brief. I would like only to share some words of thanks. First of all, to those who are following us from remote. It's not easy to propose these kinds of conferences online, even if the period that we have spent recently in lockdown situation in Italy, in Cyprus, in Europe, and many other areas in the country in the world has left no other option to us than running this kind of webinar online conferences. So thank you so much for sharing your time and following us. I understand that we are not only in this platform GoToWebinar, but it is also broadcasted on live on Facebook and YouTube channel by the Cyprus Institute. I hope that you are very numerous to follow us today. Word of thanks to Professor Butera. First of all, I'm extremely glad to have you, Professor Emeritus Professor of the Polytechnic of Milano, with us this afternoon. As Professor Jarreau mentioned before, you are now part of the Enrico Fermi Lecture, which has been established together with the Cyprus Institute by the Italian Embassy in Nicosia to reinforce our collaboration. Thank you to the Cyprus Institute, to you, Nick Jarreau, but also to the director, Professor Papanikolas. The Cyprus Institute has become a major partner for Italy here in Cyprus. It's a major institution in the country. It represents the excellence of the research here in Cyprus, and we are extremely proud to be able to collaborate with you. Also because the Cyprus Institute has become the leader here in Cyprus on a number of matters, a number of activities, in particular climate change. And I would like just to recall how much Italy is involved in promoting a global action in favor of climate change. We are, as you know, a co-organizer together with the United Kingdom of COP26 that will not take place this year, but has been postponed to 2021 and will take place in Glasgow. Italy will organize a number of events in the preparation of COP26, and I'm glad that at local level here in Cyprus, the Embassy of Italy is able to add something to this activity in collaboration with the Cyprus Institute. The last word of thanks goes to Professor Montanino, to Professor Carlucci, to Mia Trentin, but also to the many other Italian student, postdoc, researcher, visiting professor that are hosted by the Cyprus Institute. They are quite a number, and I'm extremely glad that through them and with their contribution, we are capable now to highlight the importance of Italian researcher abroad, something that has become now a matter of celebration by the Italian institution through this Italian Research Day in the world. My gratitude goes to them. They are a piece of Italy abroad. They represent at best, you represent Italy at its best level. And thank you so much for being so kindly part of these common enterprises. Thank you, and I hope that this webinar will be a success. Certainly, I'm extremely glad to be part of it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for so nice words. We try to be, let's say, representative of the potential of Italy abroad, and I think we are doing our best for representing the country. And this day, it's like a bridge. We are trying to bridge Cyprus with Italy, but we are also trying to bridge scientific and culture and humanities. And we started from this idea of talking about the impact of the viral crisis on our life and on our lifestyle. And this is the reason of the title. The COVID-19 crisis has pushed us back to our apartments, to a very small scale of living. We couldn't fly, no cars, no even no walks. Our very broad, wide, modern world has been shrunk into a very small scale in days. Okay, we had a way to compensate this isolation with digital networks. We are in a digital meeting, so we can try to get out from these small neighborhoods. But we went back and see the limits of the places where we live. Somehow, this was the reason of the title. This pandemic is a stress test for our complex and fragile societies. And it could prepare us to the harder crises that are at the horizon. And all these crises seems interconnected with our development model that's overshooting the planetary limits. That's the point and the key, let's say, message that we brought into this event. We have now in the mainstream attention the impact of our lifestyle on the planet and how this can get back to us in forms of shocks and crises. And we have been starting questioning even the economic loops of our lifestyle. So, is there an opportunity in this crisis to accelerate the transition of our communities in the direction of being more resilient? We have been quite aware about the rules we should follow in front of the coronavirus. Can we apply this awareness to other crises? Can we be more aware about the climate crisis, about the ecological crisis, and adopt similar approaches to the one we are adopting in this specific event? We have also been triggering collective creativity. We have been printing 3D masks. We have been printing ventilators. We have been launching in days new apps for contact tracing. In few days, a huge amount of funds have been driven into research and innovation to find new therapies and to build new hospitals and infrastructures. Can this massive response be replicated and extended as a systemic approach of resilience? And can we do this within the European Green Deal? So we have many questions that we are bringing in this event, and we have suggested Federico Butera as the keynote speaker because of his experience and his specific let's say, pioneering research, 40 years invested in trying to find an holistic way for counterbalancing the climate change and the planetary boundaries crisis. But I suggested also to involve our colleagues, Salvatore Carlucci, that's professor here at the Cyprus Institute, and he's the head of the group that is dealing with the built environment, is the built environment division. And Salvatore will show us a number of technologies we are working on at the Institute that are, let's say, real concrete answers to some of these questions. And finally, the invite to our colleague Mia Trentin, that is a postdoc fellow in our center that's working on science, technology applied to archaeology and culture, is because we need humanities. We need humanities to understand lessons from the past and how we can use these lessons to prepare our future. In the past, societies, our societies have been built around the resilience concept. People were facing every continuously crisis because of the emergency of new epidemics, because of climate crisis, because of agricultural problems, and the societies have been built in a resilient way. So we have been asking Mia to talk us about the way the society in Cyprus was built in a way to respond to crises in the past, around the concept of the place where we live and where they were living, in order to gather lessons for the future. So that's the reason to have this fantastic group of panelists. And I wouldn't waste more time in the introduction, because all we want to listen what they have to tell us today. So I would leave the floor to Professor Federico Butera for the keynote speech. We will collect questions through the chat that all the attendees can find in the GoToWebinar interface. So you can please write your question in the chat. We will collect, and then we will discuss your questions at the end of the first session, so at the end of the speech of Professor Butera, and later on we will do the same with the other two presentations. So thank you for being with us, and please, Federico, that's your time.
Thank you very much. I'd like to go straight to my presentation, so we'll discuss about contents later. I want to, okay, I have to show, I don't know if I can show my, if I am sharing my screen. Is it shared? Can you see the PowerPoint?
Yes, it's shared, and we see the presentation. Just to open.
I enlarge it now. Okay,
Great.
very good. Everything very easier than I thought. Okay, let's start. You see, it's a quite dramatic image, this one, but it's even more dramatic, this other image. I like it. It's very, very effective cartoon. This is what is happening. We've been talking about how virus changes our life, and is how is disrupting actually our society. But the fact is that we can win at the end. We will win it. But it's also the fact that we were not prepared to the virus. That was one of the reasons of the bad effects. And we have in front of us something which is arriving. As look at this other cartoon, we will win the virus, of course, but outside the ring there is another boxer ready to come in. is climate change, or better, is or not only climate change, but also in general the environmental disruption. So what we have to do now is to avoid to be not prepared for the struggle we are going to face. So the virus is warning us that we have to do something before. We knew it, but now it's more dramatically shown. What that means? It means that to fight against something very complex. So the issue has a very, very high complexity. It's very difficult to know where to start from. And I'm suggesting today to start from one aspect. It is the city, our settlements. It's a good way to start with, because no, just in terms of number, we more than half of mankind today is living in cities. Will be almost 70% in 2050. So these, if we do something with cities, this implies that a lot of mankind is involved. And more than that, about cities, we can collected some data, maybe you know them. Not only is they are very important because they generate GDP, but 70% of natural resources are consumed in the cities, and something like between 60 and 80% of greenhouse gas is emitted by cities. So again, this convinced me that it's correct to start with it, because if we can somehow understand how to manage the city's development, we have made a big step forward. But the question, just in order to do something, we have to know why cities have such an important role in this kind of issues. The reason can be concentrated in one word. It's metabolism. It's the urban metabolism. You see, like any organism, living organism, and the city can be considered as such, there is the input of energy, water, goods, and food. And then it's processed inside, and then we have some output that you can see in the slide. And one of these outputs, of course, are the emissions, but then it can be some goods or food that are produced by the city, and a lot of waste. What normally is done when we try to understand the weight of a city in as producers of greenhouse gases, is that we make this kind of calculation. We find out how much oil or gas or coal is burned within the borders of the city. We can consider also the electricity consumed and attribute the emissions that were necessary to have in order to produce this electricity. We attribute it to the cities, and then we have the emissions. Well, this is how the balance is made usually, but these are the so-called produced emissions. Is that enough? Is that correct, this approach? Well, it is not, because, you see, the correct approach is this other one. The city is not only working on the basis of the energy is used in it, but also on the basis of the flow of goods and foods that are being used to let it function and work. So what we have to do is to add the embodied emissions of all these goods and of the food that goes into the city. Because if the city does not use it, these goods would not be produced and the emissions would not be. So the correct balance that is proposed nowadays is to consider the actual emissions of the city as the sum of the embodied emissions in the flow of goods and food, plus the emissions due to the actually functioning of the city, the ones that are normally taken into consideration. But since some of these emissions were there just because some services or some goods were also produced and they exported, then this must be taken out. So it's imported emissions embodied in the city, in the goods, for emissions actually produced, minus the emissions exported. Well, when you do that, why this game? Look what happens. This is what the analysis made by C40, which is a network of cities, the most important large cities in the world, there are about 100. In the average, they made these calculations and found out that the produced emissions, which are the ones that normally are considered, are only 22% of the consumed emissions, the ones that actually should be accounted for. And therefore, 78% is the part of the embodied emissions in goods and food. It seems terrible. Cities are particularly, extreme in this ratio, but at a global level, at the world level, the ratio is 55 are embedded, 45 are the emissions for producing, for let things work. You know what that means? That is a change of perspective, because when you hear that there are the news and the newspaper saying that a given city has committed to get to the 2050 with zero fossil fuel emission, what that means? Usually it means that they will comply with only 22% of their job, because the 78 will not be complied. But in that case, we have not been going too far towards the aim of zero emissions in 2050. The real reason, the real thing is that we have to reduce the flow of goods, not food, because we have limits to that, of course, but of goods that come in. Products must be less in terms of number, in overall mass, because the amount of and the size of these goods is the driver of the embodied emissions. For this reason, in the one of the main pillars of the Green Deal, European Green Deal, is the circular economy. Here is from the, I just take out these few words from the Circular Economy Action Plan of the European Commissions, and you can see that it states that products should be durable, reusable, upgradable, repairable. That means that if products have this characteristic, plus all the other one you can read just in the slide, they will become less. So the flow of goods, the production will be reduced. That is quite an interesting thing, because this means that the economy of the city and of the world at this time should shift from a production-based economy to a, let's say, maintenance-based economy. So this is the big change, and this is the big challenge mainly that we have, because you can easily understand that there are some problems about growth, economic growth, or so-called economic growth, actually GDP growth and so on. But just to complete this description of the circular economy, you see there is a kind of drawing that sort of butterfly, you know, with two wings. One of the two wings is about the technical parts, which is technologies, let's say. So they here are defined as nutrients, because, you know, it's an input. If the city is an organism, there's everything, all the goods are nutrients, like when you eat food. And these technical nutrients should at least be treated in a circular way, as you can see, by repairing, reusing, refurbishing, recycling them. And recycle them is the very last step, because not the first one, as many are trying to do, because it's a very good to remain in the same kind of mental structure. If we go to the biological nutrients, we have not talked about that, is food, of course. There is a part that should be repurposed, and that part must be recycled again. How? Just by means of microbial digestion, which can be in two ways, or with composting, or with better would be the use of biodigester in order to produce biogas. In this way, you have the minimization of materials in the technical nutrients, and the minimization of the exploitation of ecosystem and ecosystem services, which means renewable resources as well, and also the minimization of the renewable energy that you need, and then the minimization of waste. Let's go a little more into detail about the food issue. You see what happened? Okay. You see, of this big amount of food produced, 7 billion tons annually, which these are the data for 2018, a large part goes to people, not all of it, slightly more than 50%. And of this part going to people for human consumption, there is a large part that goes to cities. Okay, but you know what is the problem? The problem is that of this 2.3 billion tons that contain all the nutrients that we put on the field in order to let the plants grow, the plants we are going to eat after, because these nutrients are nutrients for the plants, but are also nutrients for us. Well, what happens? That is a completely broken cycle, because we just use these organic wastes that are produced by the cities and try to get rid of them. Only less than 2% of these nutrients that are contained in these wastes goes back to the field where it should go. And instead, we produce nitrogen, phosphorus, and other nutrients artificially, and producing more and more pollution and energy consumption and emissions. So this cycle is a very important cycle, which implies a new, not new for us, but to recover and re-establish what was an old, normal relationship between the settlements and the agricultural fields around them. You see, it's 78% of human consumption goes to settlement. It's not a small part. And in this food which is used, is not included only the chemicals, the chemical inputs, which is not only fertilizers, but also, of course, pesticide and herbicide. But there is water as well. It's very important. This aspect of water that could be also recycled, and fossil energy and soil. Then we can give a first reflection, first conclusion, and say that the scientific community tells us since a long time that there are two critical issues that we have to face and try to solve with our actions. One is climate change, the other one is biodiversity loss. But if you go to the next step and analyze where these problems arise, one is that climate change, we usually say, okay, are the greenhouse gas emissions due to our activities like in industry, transport, and housing? But it is not enough, because food production is a critical issue as well, not only because it's important for us, but also because it's as a significant part, about 25% of climate change, and climate change has a very important impact on food production, but also food production is the main driver of biodiversity loss. So if we don't face at the same time the two origins, main drivers of this of climate change and biodiversity, we do not go very far. So reduce fossil fuels only is a small part of the problem, which is could be solved. And then let's say a settlement, in order to try to comply with this picture, how it should be designed, how it should work. Well, it should work in a way to minimize the input flow of materials and of embedded emissions, then minimize the use of energy and, of course, use only renewable energy, and close the nutrient cycle, because in this way can be reduced the impact of agriculture on biodiversity loss. And let's go slightly more into detail now. What means minimizing embodied energy, embodied emissions of greenhouse gas emissions? Well, you know, in the building regulations of all cities, there are a lot of regulations, except one that is really linked to the fact that should be regulated also the kind of materials, how much of that material or that could be used in order to say, shape the design of buildings also according to the kind of materials, trying to minimize the amount of embodied energy and then emissions. But it's not enough. Something that can be done in different forms and different strengths according to the structure of the powers in a country. It can be different in different countries, of course. But you know, what in a city should be forbidden is to have the single-use containers of beer or wine or anything, any liquid. And this can be somehow incentivized or made difficult to do that, or better incentivize the fact that you use the depository return scheme. Same for packaging-free retail shops. They already exist. Should be strongly incentivized to reduce the amount of packaging that is our materials coming in. But in order to repair, upgrade, refurbish, and reuse, this can be also incentivized and should be done, giving spaces to the workshops, to trying to create all the conditions around these activities in order to make them easier to run, and also in terms of trying convincing people to make use of them. And of course, you see that hand with consumerism. To do that, to have a city in which actually people normally goes to buy an used garment instead of a necessarily new one every 2 months, this means that something in the mind of the citizens should change also, because consumerism should be put aside. About buildings, next step. Now we have in Europe, we have the zero energy building directive, and then in each country they became regulations. The problem is that these directives, regulations, say simply that new buildings should be zero energy, or nearly, only for heating, cooling, and hot water production. But the energy that goes in a building is far more. So we should go to be near zero for including all the electricity needed for the electric appliances. But not only correctly, we should start to think, at least, to the fact that the metabolism of a building is very close. Actually, is the same at a smaller scale than a city. So we should aim to the net zero emission building. By sure, this should not exist, should be forbidden because these buildings are wasteful of material and body materials, and mainly in order to make them work. The other issue is about something that is linked to the climate change. You know, in settlements you have the so-called heat island effect, which is exacerbated by heat waves. What to do to avoid it? Because it's very important. A lot of people every year dies because of this phenomenon. The only way is to increase the green. Greening is the critical issue, and not only green in like parks, trees, and so on, very important, crucial to say. But we have to include in green, in urban green, also urban agriculture, which has the double advantage. One is that being green makes its job not as effective as a tree, but still effective. But at the same time, there is a production of something that has not come from so far. So is food that is locally produced, is a 0 kilometer food. But the most important thing is about how a settlement should reorganize. You know, in the 50s, urbanists decided that the city should be structured in such a way it was zoned with zoning, a place where to work, a place where to live, a place where to have leisure, and then go from one to another by car, of course. No, nowadays, urban designers aim to sustainability. They say mixed use. The three activities, the three needs, the three functions of a settlement should be overlapped in order to minimize the need for moving. But there is more. What is to do is to reorganize and redistribute all the services, the shops, schools, and anything in such a way that the ones that I need to use more frequently, let's say every day, must be not so far, or to be reached easily by foot. In other words, the distances between 400 and 600 meters, because 5 minutes by feet is the optimum way. And then the ones that I use less frequently can be a little farther, and I can reach them by bicycle, but again in 5 minutes. In this way, just as an organizing approach, different organizing approach, I can reduce enormously the need for motorized transport, because it's easier and quicker to go by foot than to move with a car or anything else. The consequence is that a city should have large pavements, be very pleasant to walk and to go and buy things, and cycle lanes. Of course, in this new city, there is no room at all for shopping malls. There is no room for business centers. There is no room for low-density residential areas. So this is a sort of, again, revolution but without this revolution, a city cannot be really sustainable and comply with the needs of zero emission 2050. Of course, what we have said is connected to favoring small distributor retail shops, food, street markets. You see, it's a big revolution that also has a big impact on employment, because if you move from the great shopping mall to a number of small shops, things change also in terms of employment. Of course, then you have to use as much as possible car sharing, bike sharing, electric possibly, and then to have an effective, efficient public transport system. For renewables, okay, there are so many, are all considered. Actually, what in the city is photovoltaic, the most important. And on this point, I would like to point out something. The zero energy building, if photovoltaic is the technology used, as in the majority of cases, puts a limit to the height of buildings. There is no room for a tall building in a sustainable settlement for a simple reason, because if I have too many floors and each floor needs to have such and such kilowatt hours, the maximum of kilowatt hours that can be produced by the roof is limited by its area. So there is necessarily an height limit for having zero energy buildings. For instance, if you see this graph is for, by the way, is for tropical areas, so a lot of solar energy. Look at the green line, which is for apartments of 100 square meters. For 5,000 kilowatt hours per year, you have a maximum of 4 floors. You cannot go more than that. If you go to Stockholm, it will be 2 floors probably, not 4, because of the reduced energy. And the other thing is, of course, you have to microgrid, smart grid, a lot of connection between the physical dialogue and the data exchange, and energy storage is the other important issue. But then there is something else important. Look at the household. The household, what is produced as water, you have the water that is thrown away because of the sewage from storm water, from the rain. Then you have the gray water, is from any, from washing clothes, from bath, from shower, and so on. Then there is the kitchen sink and the toilet, that is the black water. Both gray and black go usually to wastewater altogether. Well, this should not be like this. New buildings, building regulation should make compulsory to separate gray water and black water, because gray water can be easily purified and be recycled, while black water can go to a different kind of treatment system, which exists already and is used in many cities in Northern Europe, where you, instead of simply treating the black water in order to have water purified enough to can be poured on its river or on the sea, then you use the black water as a basis for anaerobic digestion, and you produce biogas, which is used by the city itself, and the result, the biosolids deriving from the biogas digestion, that with a little further treatment become what? Become fertilizers, and those nutrients we were talking before, and they can go to the surrounding fields. In this way, we can start to close the cycles. Of course, there is a problem of size of everything. The other part is the organic, that many cities use them for making compost. Better would be to make biogas and again use the solid part as a fertilizer. Conclusion, what happens, that we should, as much as possible, to recreate a dialogue in terms of nutrients between food produced and nutrients given back to the surrounding agriculture, and increase and make stronger the relationship, local relationship between the settlement and the surrounding food production. And then with this interaction, which is also interaction between the consumer and the producer, enhance or help the development of agroecology or agroecological farming systems, which are absolutely necessary. Of course, here the issue of the settlement size is crucial. A mega city cannot develop such a system. Smaller size of cities can do it far more easily. Conclusion: life in a sustainable settlement would be very different than the life today in our cities. Based on the principle of repair more, produce less, a lot of sharing, from car sharing to the drill sharing, or any kind of appliance that is used only occasionally should be shared. The fact that dresses should be I don't say shared, but recirculated somehow, but be long-lasting, and be able to be repaired. Of course, circular economy, agroecology, renewables, closed nutrient cycle, and settlement designed in a different way to let us go around and buy and do everything just walking. Thank you very much. This is the end.
Thank you so much, Federico, for this very comprehensive view of how we should change the cities. If you are available, I would start with a question and then ask the other panelists to follow, and also, of course, the public. Even if we have a significant part of the attendance is not on the platform, it's on YouTube and Facebook, so it would be more difficult for them to make questions. I start from your last slide. That's let's say the overall picture, and one of the items is ban consumerism, but it's not the same, let's say, weight of the other ones, because this is the dominant concept and the dominant philosophy of our lifestyle. So we can, in my opinion, we can start managing all the other improvements, trying to improve the way we recycle, we reuse, we produce energy, and so on. But if we don't stop the culture of consumerism, it might be that's not enough. What do you think about that? Because this is a cultural, but very deep cultural issue.
Of course, they have to go together. I mean, when here is important what is the action made by governments or by Europe in this case. If really this mission of applying in a correct way this circular economy makes things in such a way that if I produce something that has to be thrown away after 2 months, like the T-shirt bought at Zara or H&M, because it's obsolete in 2 months. And what I have to do to avoid that? To tax it very heavily, for instance. So if there is a very strong decision in the direction of putting in action the circular economy, the reduction of consumerism would be almost the obvious, unavoidable consequence. Here's one side. Of course, at the same time, it is absolutely necessary that some action at level of, let's say, attitude should change. I agree with you. Consumerism is a way of life, but if governments or Europe stops to say that consuming is something that is helpful, don't forget the message we receive. Even now, we have to start again consumption. That's true, because consume, otherwise everything is stopped. But it is said within a context in which says to consume is good. The more you consume, the better it is. These are messages that are given by the top, by everybody. If there is a conscience at the level of consumer, a different way, if we start, I mean we are the people that in some way has some flaw in those same decisions, at least in communicating. If we state strongly that you feel offended when you are called consumerist, a consumer, instead of being a human being, well, that could change things. But I agree with you, it's the most difficult part of it, not by chance. When we talk about that, we have only one reference at the moment, Pope Francis, because he's the only one saying explicitly that consumerism is something bad.
Thank you, Federico. There is a question from the ambassador. Would you take the microphone and...
Yes, thank you, but I don't want to limit others. Thank you so much, Professor Butera, for your extremely comprehensive expose. And my question is the COVID crisis been of any help in inducing better attitude and by all of us? I've been pleased to see, in particular, some mayor in big cities like Paris or Milano, indicating that after the crisis, they will rethink most of the urban planning and going in the direction that you have indicated, in particular with regard to mobility, urban mobility. In big cities are problematic for many reasons, energy efficiency as well. So maybe we have an opportunity, and this crisis, with all the bad that has brought, can maybe be the key for a change. What do you think?
I agree with you. I mean, well, just these days, of course, being in Italy, I'm involved in what is going on with our government and the proposals and so on. Actually, I think it's a big opportunity if the promises of European Union are fulfilled. Because what has been said is that there is a lot of money. All Europe needs this money because the economy has been really hardly hit. And we have to rebuild something. How? If the Green Deal is really the guideline for using these financial resources that will come from Europe, more than 1 billion euros. That's or trillion euros, sorry, trillion euros. This could be really a change, a complete change. I am say positive in that. I mean, in the optimistic, because I think that more and more people is understanding. Reading declarations made by also head of states and so on, it seems that there is some conscious awareness about the need of changing. And there is something else that makes me be say optimistic, is that we have learned that from one day to another we can really change our habits. These are that. And it was bad, but not so bad. We are changing our habits because the way we meet now in Italy, and I imagine also in Cyprus, was stay 2 meters, not mask immediately, but when you enter friend's home, you have your hands cleaned up and so on. There are a lot of new habits, and I think that something can be done. I'm optimistic, not too much, I must say, because I see something else. I see, for instance, the the way in which most Italian entrepreneurs are interpreting the circular economy. What they say is that we have to produce as much waste, so we have a lot of waste to recycle. And that is the idea, because this means that there is increasing production. And so, well, look how much you can recycle. Never stop the flow of things to waste. So there is to fight, but still there is. If you don't take profit of this chance, the next will be the environmental collapse.
And thank you, Federico. You know that in our discussion, usually you are the more pessimistic person, so I'm happy to hear that you are optimistic today. I must say I have seen the, let's say, the graphical representation of the recovery plan of Italy, and when I see represented the revolution, the green revolution, with transformation in the industry, with a chimney that is smoking, and with a bridge as an infrastructure, that's you know, not the most appropriate way to represent this transition. So we have a lot of work to be done in terms of cultural transition, I think. Salvatore Carlucci has a question, and sorry.
No, I want to add only one thing. I'm also optimistic only in one thing, that we will not, Italy, we will not get any money unless we propose projects which are aligned to the Green Deal. This is what was done, and so I'm optimistic about that. This is the only thing, because not because we become better, but because we have no choice.
But you know, as I see a bridge, I think that we could even propose to paint the Messina Bridge by green, and this will be green. So there are many ways to make things green. Let's give the microphone to Salvatore Carlucci just for the last question, and we will move then to the next session.
Thank you very much, Fabio. Thank you really much, Professor Butera. Very inspiring and comprehensive your presentation. I really like the fact to try to represent the complexity, how each of these domains might be easily understood. We have good knowledge on some pieces, but when we put everything together, the picture is really complex. Every time we move, we touch some systems, then we have feedbacks on other systems that can really change the forecast that we make about that. My original question was about your impression about the green European Green Deal, since it's something big, something that can really change, but you actually have discussed this issue in the previous answer. So my question now is, what do you think about the approach that we use to address this complexity? I mean, you have spoken about zero energy buildings and the needs to expand the domain towards zero emissions. So try to put into the system again other problems. But at the same time, this is conflictual, since we will, for example, increase another issue that is, for example, energy poverty. So how people can really achieve, can really renovate in particular buildings in order to get that kind of level. So it's, I think, very complex. What do you think about the strategy that Europe and other supranational institutions are using? So splitting programs, having some kind of silos where some of these topics are discussed.
The audio is not so very good. I hope I understood what you said, because it was somehow I could hear and not hear. However, you mean, I try to repeat your question, because if I understood it, that how I see the fact that this policy of greening is carried out with independent and separated initiatives. Is this your question? More or less? Okay, good. Well, the problem is that the way to act is by individual projects. There is no other way to. You cannot change everything at the same time because it's impossible. It's unrealistic. What I would say is that this is not bad by itself. The fact of acting, say, project by project and initiative by initiative, provided that you have the appropriate vision and the appropriate, say, methodology. There is a methodology which is now old enough, not very old, but old enough, let's say about 20 years or 30, which was, by the way, first of all, applied by the city of Copenhagen, no, sorry, of Gothenburg for its development 30 years ago, more or less. Then was also European Union proposed it for the green development of Europe, several cases. It is the so-called backcasting, the planning. What is backcasting is the opposite of forecasting. Normally, people make plans on the basis of forecast. Things will go this way and so on. What they proposed and use this methodology is you have a vision. What is your vision? This one. Maybe you change it later, but let's have that in 30 years, 50 years. Tomorrow, there is the project of a new motorway. Is this project consistent with the vision at 50 years? If it is, okay, let's go ahead and try to understand. If it is not, you stop it. Of course, these decisions must be taken by the community, entire community. Then, so the activity by pieces is not by itself wrong. The problem is how you do it. If you do with this approach, it's okay. If you do as usual, that is just because you are looking for more votes in that area, because it happens with politicians, then you don't get anything.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you again, Federico, because this is the right way to conclude that it's the need to define a long-term vision and try to be consistent with the long-term vision. That's the real challenge that we have. We have this with a COVID issue, because if the long-term issue is to have a healthy society, we have to make a lot of things, even if we are not in the middle of a pandemic. And that's the same if we want to face more complex and far-term problems. I would conclude this session and move to the other two presentations, and we will have time, I think, at the end of this second half of our webinar to further discuss. So I would give the floor to Salvatore now to present what we are doing at the Institute in terms of solutions that would help in designing and in managing sustainable settlements. Please, Professor Carlucci, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. So I really thank you, all of you, for inviting me to these important events, in this important seminar, the Italia Research Day. And my small contribution is about speaking about some of the activities that we at the Cyprus Institute in the latest year have developed in order to contribute to this discussion about what's the settlements of the future. So just to go briefly to set the ground, the starting point is which future for the building sector, and basically what are the constraints that we are so far seeing happening. So basically, Professor Butera has greatly explained all of this, so I will just mention the titles just to keep them in mind, since in some cases, with some of the activities, we try to get back and to provide solutions, to provide options in order to contribute to mitigate some of these issues. The building sector is, of course, one of the biggest sectors in terms of using energy and resources, is one of the sectors that is directly contributing to climate change, changing locally as well the conditions of the climate. Specifically speaking, for the southern Mediterranean areas, basically the average quality of the building stock is quite low, and buildings are old. Almost 50% of the stock has been built before 90s without proper insulation, for example, with quite low quality levels. Then urban Thailand is an important phenomenon that is present so far and is going to increase as urbanization will increase. And this is the trend that we have seen, for example, in emerging economies in developing world. Therefore, there is a very important issue that is a little bit wider, takes into account the human dimension into the built environment, that is urban vulnerability. So far, cities host more than half of the world's population, and many of people living in this kind of unstructured urban settlements are exposed to natural and man-made hazards. This is really important. That picture that you see on the right basically comes from the United States of America. And lately also energy poverty. Is estimated that basically 200 million people cannot afford to pay energy bills in the developed world. This is extremely interesting, and actually also the Green Deal focused precisely on also how we can mitigate, how can we reduce energy poverty. At the same time, our buildings are asked for more services. So we want them to be sustainable with what the common definition of sustainability means. We want them to be zero energy, possibly zero emission, if properly defined. We want them to be comfortable, but with the COVID issue, we have discovered explicitly also the dimension of health. So we want them to be healthy. Then we also would like them to be energy flexible, so to be integrated into the energy grids, energy technologies and systems in a way that they can work together with the system in order not to become sort of burden in some period, particularly in some periods of the day. And of course, we want them to be cheap to be built and maintained. How can we put all of these together? This is an effort that not all of us, but all engineering and architecture schools are trying, companies are trying to face in the latest, at least 30 years. And in particular here at the Alberts Institute, we have started on some activities in these regards. In particular here, I mentioned some of the projects that are more focused on the technology development than, for example, holistic discussions and how the problem is set, how we can provide solutions. So the first one is Smart Gens, this important project that has been already completed, where the issue was how can we understand, develop knowledge and solutions for smart grids in order to, for example, increase the load shaping, energy efficiency, optimal integration, and matching generation and consumption, so reducing the load match index. This was an experience where we learned a lot, we exchange informations and knowledge, and from them we hope to develop new interesting research opportunities. An ongoing project that was launched 4 years ago is Zero Plus, achieving near zero and positive energy settlements in Europe using advanced energy technologies. Here the idea was, besides trying to set the problem and what is zero energy buildings, what is a positive building, issue that has been already discussed since 2006 basically. The idea is how can we in practice provide solution, put together into a system, so advanced solutions, technological solution that can help us in achieving this kind of objective, that is the zero or positive settlement in specific context for European context, and Cyprus was one of these climate conditions. The last one is one project that is in development right now, and the idea is to develop a nature-inspired modular and flexible scheme for high efficiency in buildings. This is very interesting since we are trying to get inspiration from nature and try to use advanced and computer-aided solutions and let's say all the knowledge that we can put on the table in order to develop solutions that can provide, as we will see in a short, sort of modular dynamic performance, give to this system some adaptability capacity. So just starting from this last attempt, would like to show some of the ideas, the concepts that have been developed here by some colleague of us. The idea is to develop this modular and flexible scheme that basically can optimize the building energy performance, and in particular can be also used on the existing building stock, can be used for modulating energy flows and mass flows around the system, in and out the system, optimize the energy and mass balance of the system, and therefore this might be done developing a controllable and adaptable facade system. On the other side, what kind of functionalities would like that this system have? We would like, for example, that it is able to harvest solar radiation and therefore generate electricity using some organic photovoltaic systems. It can modulate the microclimate, indoor microclimate, working on the capacity of shading, be porous to air flows, let some energy to be exchanged from outside, brought from outside to inside, as well as light, and also be iconic, to have iconic nocturnal lighting. That is another quite interesting feature that might be interesting. How could we try to put together all these features? So basically the idea behind the mesh is that it is an innovative facade systems that combines high adaptability and multifunctionality at the same time with being cost effective. This is a key element of this development. So the idea is to develop modules that dynamically can modulate shading and ventilation, and at the same time can generate electricity from solar radiation, and being aesthetically acceptable and easy to be integrated into an existing building. This is one of the prototypes that has been developed so far, where we see different modules with these different functions that can be adjusted and customized in order to satisfy the needs that we specifically have for a specific building. This project is ongoing, and we really hope to develop prototypes, real components here at the Institute, install them, test them together with people. What is interesting of this project is, of course, the product, but at the same time, also the fact that it might be used and applied to different building types, matching different needs. At the same time, all the development project of it has been quite interesting, taking into account also the co-design approach, where also citizens, people, researchers, producers are into the design phase. So it's not, we are just moving from a serial process where the life of a product is developed by steps, one after the other, put one after the other, to a model where we integrate from the beginning, the concept, the sketch, up to the realization, and so forth, the scaling approach up to the local production and the eventually supply chain. Just to give some ideas, the estimated total available market for this technology might be 2.6 billion of square meters of facade areas for the next 30 years. And the objective that we would like to achieve at the Institute is to have a cost of 300 euros per square meter and achieving a payback period of 3 to 5 years in order to be really possible to install these systems. The second solution is called Frisco. is an innovative desiccant and evaporative cooling technology developed in a startup at the University of Palermo that is called Solar Invent. Basically, Frisco is an air conditioning devices developed on, again, tech technology, desiccant and evaporative cooling that provides different services. Air change, so ventilation with filtration, humidification, space cooling, space heating, and heat recovery. Very high global electrical efficiency. Typically, the energy efficiency ratio is higher than 10. That is basically almost from 2 to 3 times higher than typical ratios of typical HVAC systems, heating, ventilation, air conditioning. Can achieve energy saving and CO2 emission reduction up to 80% if it's feed the system with renewable heat wasted from other systems, like we will see later. And it can be very easily coupled with multifunctional heat pumps. Possibility for free cooling, and of course it provides a high indoor air quality thanks to the filtration and absorption mechanism, so that with this system we can provide clean and fresh air. No use of dangerous substances and aggressive fluids. Basically, water is the main heat fluid used in these systems. And also the system in the Zero Plus project has been also rearranged and now is a pre-ensemble ready for installation, and allows a lot of different system configuration and customizations. Frisco is a patented solution for Solar Invent. This is the first prototype developed in 2014, 2016, with some limitation. Basically, the biggest limitation was the weight and the fact that needed to be installed on terraces of roof. So during the project, there was the idea to develop a facade module that could be easily integrated into buildings, like has been done here. And within the project, basically something more was done, starting from a first facade, Frisco facade module. Then the module was rearranged, and now this is the latest version for a very easy integration into the building fabric. And this is the element that has been installed here at the pilot case study in Cyprus. You can see here the system. There is a possibility to couple it with heat recovery unit that is very interesting, since can enable the application in residential unit and offices. And it's very interesting since it provides 100% fresh air to the building, recovering the energy. So this is a very key point with respect also with the COVID issue. So we don't need to recirculate indoor air, but at the same time we are saving energy. The second solution is high concentrated photovoltaic and thermal systems. The idea is basically that we take sunlight, sunbeams, we concentrate them on basically solar cells, photovoltaic cells, and so we generate directly electricity, and by cooling down the cells we can also produce heat that can later be used for other activities. The system is very interesting, since basically from 45 times 45 centimeters mirror, double curvature parabolic mirror, basically all these solar beams are converted up basically solar cells of 1 square centimeter, basically with a concentration factor of 2000 suns. This is quite impressive outcomes. The design of this system has been cured so much that all the element that has been optimized in order to provide the best performance to this system. This is the way in which all the solar radiation is modulated and distributed uniformly on the solar cells. Which kind of solar cells are being used? Basically, with the technology that we have so far, we can reach up to 46% of the conversion factor, but only if we use these multi-joint solar cells. And this is what has been also done here into the HCPV. What is interesting is that we have the cell that you can see here, but at the same time, in order to let it work in the best way, then the temperature above the surface is kept up to temperature of 107, 110 degrees. So basically we need some cooling, and cooling is done taking water or basically water, and then is cooled down. The system has been optimized using computational fluid dynamics in order to keep the efficiency ratio higher than 30%. And actually with the water that is in this way heated up, basically we can have this output temperature of 70 to 80%. That is very suitable for civil and industrial low temperature applications. This is the system, the final system as realized. This is a sketch of the entire system, as you see. This is the functioning. We have basically a two-axis sun tracker that in this case can modulate from east to west along the north-south axis. And this is the other orientation. All the modules can turn up and down in order to meet the solar angle. Just some important data. Electric peak power generation is about 1 kilowatt electric, and thermal peak power generation is about 2 kilowatt. The outlet water temperature is 17 degrees. Basically, the combined and power efficiency is from 72 to 85%. Extremely interesting device. This is the installation at our institute, where it's possible to see the system working. And basically here we have also connected the Frisco with the HCPV. We have also equipped the system with a battery array that will help us also to provide electric flexibility and test some control strategies in the near term. This is the combined system. So we have the Frisco that can supply air, ambient air is taken in, rejected heat is taken out. Then we have his solar collector for heating water, and this is connected to a tank to the basically to the HCPV that directly generate electricity, and with the waste heat of the hot water warm up the tanks that then is used also to preheat the water that goes into the Frisco. The system is fully working, and we are measuring the performance of this combined system right now into our case study here at the Cyprus Institute. The last technology I would like to mention is the linear Fresnel collector. What is the idea? The idea is basically to develop a device that is able to convey solar rays to a receiver that is mounted downward facing. And all these surfaces that will reflect are basically long rows of flat or slightly curved mirrors that move independently, like is shown here in the picture. Basically, we have three components: the primary reflector, that are these mirrors that can rotate. Then we have the absorber, where we have the heat transfer fluid that flows and warmed up. And then to optimize the performance, we have a secondary reflector that really increase the performance of the overall system. Different solutions can have been provided so far for each of these elements, but this is the application that has been here installed at the Cyprus Institute. Is available also for seeing, and is expected to serve the segments of the different buildings that we have here at the Institute. There are some data here. Basically, the field is 4 meters times 8 meters, and it's very impressive technology that is here available. Of course, there is the possibility for development, and in particular, we using the economy of scale, we can scale up, reducing the cost. Then, of course, the issue of make it economically competitive is extremely interesting. And the other aspects is to think about new ways of integrating the LFC into other wider systems. And so, for example, developing systems where we combine photovoltaics or molten salt circulation, and so on and so forth. Basically, just to close down my presentation, all these three technologies that I've shown you have been filled in the portfolio of solutions highlighted by the Energy Efficient Building PPT Triple P Promising Technologies in 2018, and have been here discussed inside the Zero Plus projects. I would like to thank you for the attention, and a big thanks for the contribution to Fabio Montagnino, George Artopoulos, and Pietro Finocchiaro that were very helpful for developing this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm so proud to see this gallery because I mean, this is something we have been working a lot in Italy that has been brought to Cyprus. So it's really, each of these technologies is a bridge from Italy to Cyprus. Companies from Italy are involved, technicians, professionals, scientists. So that's something that now is here as a package for our future developments. So I want to move to the last presentation. So we will try to stay in time and have the opportunity for a last roundtable. Mia Trentin, that's your time. Please take the floor and bring us to the past, to the 18th century.
Can you see the, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we see and we hear. I hope everybody.
Okay. So, ready. Before starting today, just a moment, because I would like to see if it's possible. Sorry. So before starting today, I would like to thank this year and once more His Excellency, the Italian Ambassador Andrea Cavallari, for his support and interest in research, enhancing and celebrating the long-lasting relationship of our two countries, Italy and Cyprus, in so many areas. My contribution today will partly touch this tradition by focusing on the Latin community of Larnaca, composed by numerous Italians ante litteram, since we are talking about the 18th century. From a general point of view, okay, the 18th century represents the last period before the political and technological events which shape and change the direction of European first and then of the world history. Something I want to clarify from the very beginning is that when we speak of history, we do not speak of great events linked by a cause-effect relationship. This is only the surface. This is what is the easiest thing to grasp, understand, and explain. History is, of course, much more. History begins with each individual, with his feelings, his action, his life of relationship, action, activities, and choices. Individual aspects that become collective through societies and are able of modifying even the largest and most complex system. That is what is happening today, and we are all seeing. This is why this webinar focuses on the house, our private space. In this perspective, our individual and intimate space is at the same time the reflection and the shapes of our life habits. It starts with individual and affects the whole community. For this reason, as has been said, rethinking the domestic space can be one of the engines for a resilient change, which put the individual back to the center, make him aware of his role in history, therefore in a global system. In this process, the role of the humanities can contribute significantly by offering food for thoughts and suggestions based on what has already been experienced and happened in the past. A significant case study for the analysis of domestic space is the city of Larnaca in the 18th century. The reasons are manifold. First of all, although the capital is Nicosia, Larnaca represent the economic center of the island and its main port. Most of the ships arrived here were emporiums and all the consular representation were based. Larnaca represents an urban setting with lively exchange and a multicultural atmosphere. The city was composed of two settlements, Scala and Larnaca, half an hour away by foot, as visible in these 1727 drawings by the Russian monks Vasily Grigorovich Barsky. Scala on the coast hosted commercial activities, while the consulates and the political and administrative center of the city were located in Larnaca. I don't know if I can show you. In this area, you can see the indication of the English consulate here. Here there was also, so in Larnaca, there was also the Catholic Franciscan monastery of Terra Santa. A picture of today, which dealt with the care of the soul of the Latin population of Catholic rite and of all the Catholics of the island, because the Latin community back then included the Europeans, but also Armenians and Maronites living in the island, since they were of Catholic rite. Thanks to two manuscripts, originally part of the local monastery archives and now kept at the Central Monastery in Jerusalem, the custody of the Holy Land. Today we can know details of the daily life of this community. The importance of this monastery from the historical point of view lies precisely in their care of souls, the so-called cura d'anime. The monastery exercised parochial function, celebrating and recording the most relevant moments of Christian life, baptism, marriages, and funerals. Celebrations were punctually recorded and in handwritten register, which today constitute a rich source of information regarding its members and their everyday life. The sources I will use today are from two registers, the one of death, you can see some picture here, and the one of marriages. The one of death, as you see, it covers from the year 1729 until 1824, so more or less a century, while the marriages one goes from 1733 until 1880, so a little bit more than a century. The original manuscripts are now kept in the Central Archive in Jerusalem, and their critical edition was published in 2015 and 2019, respectively. Other information derives from the found, other information I mentioned today derives from the material, archival material, specifically the Consolato Veneto del Regno di Cipro, preserved in the Venetian State Archive. These are basically commercial documents, above all recording the movement of goods entering and leaving the island on Venetian ships, or traders or trades made by those who benefited of the protection of the Republic of Venice, and of course any kind of issue that would have happened within people that were protected by the Republic of Venice. Within these sources, the house appears as the main space in which the activities and life of the community took place. The house was firstly a place to live and die. Birth and death, beginning and end of life took place within the home. Here I put a text. I'm sorry that it's only in Latin. And of 1735, it's a death note where we can see that this Maria Pori, that was the daughter of a relevant of Enrico Fermi, a relevant local family. She was ill and she was spending her last hours in the house, and the house was quite crowded because the family was, of course, desperate due to her illness, and they were trying to do anything in order to save her. So they also request the help of the Greek priest that, when the Latin one arrived in order to give the holy oils, so the last ceremony before the death, was there. And there was also this small trial because the Latin priest was not allowed, while they were trusting the Greek one. But finally, anyway, unfortunately, it was okay. A normal consequence. The girl died, and the comment of the priest was that despite everything they did and all the people they invited at home in order to take part in this and try to help the girl to be better, they didn't put their faith in God, but on the wrong divinity, and so the girl passed away. They couldn't help her. Just to show how, even at the moment of death, the house was the main point. The death was usually occurred in the house, unlike today. Also because care facilities such as hospitals, although present in certain regions, were specializing in the treatment of specific diseases such as leprosy and ergotism. The house was the space where people were born, cared for, and died, accompanied in a urban settings by doctors who visited the patient at home. So there was this basic service of care, but it was performed in the house with the doctor going, visiting materially the house of the sick. This care system proved to be particularly effective in the event of the epidemics. The death register reports cases of plague in Cyprus in 1732, 1741, 1744, 1780, 1785, and 1792. These were just cases because a significant pandemic affected all the MENA region in 1760, and it was the worst one. It was necessary to establish here in Larnaca and the Catholic Parish Church a particular cemetery for plague, not so much to preserve the contagion for spreading, but for the high number of deaths. And here is the note that the priest registered, saying that in 1760, in all the island of Cyprus was spreading the plague, and he specify where people by whom and where people were buried. And he closed the note saying, I will try to write and to keep memory of everyone that left and was affected by the plague and dead, because they were really very numerous. So the stay of the patient at home proved to be effective, mainly in the cases of pandemics, because people in suspicion of plague were isolated and the risk of contagion were limited. From the sources, it is clear that the population, especially in the urban area, was very attentive to the first signs of the epidemic and took measures alone to limit their spread, such as preventive isolation or the reduction of activities in contact with the public. So they knew, they were much more used, of course, with all these cases and this wave of the pandemic recording within the 18th century, and they already took from the first signs, so the first ill that were detected, they already started to take self-measure without waiting for the government to make public announcement. The only ones who did not interrupt their activity in this period were, of course, the doctors and the monks of the Holy Land of Terra Santa, who were engaged in the care of the body and the soul of the Catholics. As exemplar, this note, Jean-Baptiste Lefebvre, that was a doctor, a French doctor, that died by the plague, and also was affected also the priest that went there to give him the last benediction, the last sacraments. So both finally were affected. It was, of course, a very dangerous profession, both of them. And yeah, sometimes despite all the measures they could take into consideration, it was not so easy to avoid the contagious. To die, something else that we should consider when thinking about dying in our house is the motive aspect. We know that not only people, the owners or the family living in the house was dying there, but we have also other cases where, like in these two, people were hosted by relatives, by friends, or sometimes also but just by people they did not know, and they got ill and they die, or they just die. For example, here in the first case, it's a local that dies. No, sorry, it's the second one. The second that is a Catholic, Armenian Catholic that comes from abroad, that died in the house of the French interpreter. So possibly this person was coming from abroad and was hosted in the house of the French dragoman. It was common also this. The experience with death was part so of everyday life, and people could deal with it differently. The house was, in this sense, also a place of emotional education, an aspect that gradually we lost, separating the beginning and the end of life from the domestic space, transferring dysfunction to neutral structures such as hospitals. The house, it was also a place to work. Before the Industrial Revolution, the house was also a workplace in most cases. In the urban environment of Larnaca of the 18th century, those who had an activity carried it out in the so-called Casa Bottega, as we can see in the document from the Consolato Veneto del Regno di Cipro, mentioning merchants under Venetian protection established in Larnaca. Here we can see a list with names and when they reached Venice. For example, Andrea Pelli arrived in 1756. He made a company with Domenico Serioli that was established in Scala, so in the coastal part of Larnaca, and then separato si prese casa, solo si stabilì, and so at a certain point he decided to, in 1760, they divided, they ended the first society, and he moved to another house. And then also we have one of the main, of course, activities of the Venetian consulate was to register all the goods entering and entering in Cyprus, but also the belongings of people subject to Venetian that died. And this is something that I did not consider but came to my mind with Professor Butera's talk, is that usually we see that during after or in the last will, the people that know that is close to death declare all his or ask for an inventory, so for the list of all his belongings, and what is not assigned by the person that signed the last will is then sold on the public is sold with a public event, and you can see that in the list there's a lot of stuff that are used, and they were just buying. We know that they had a value, and they were reusing in the logic that was described before. So nothing were even cloth with holes or piece of cloth. Everything was really reserved and reused in any way. They were very creative for sure. So it was a place to work for merchants, but also small artisans that were producing their products inside the city. What could not be provided in the urban context, such as primary foodstuff, were produced in the surrounding area or at a short distance. Long-haul trade only concerned fine foods, such as the salt, for which Cyprus and Larnaca is famous, and the wine also, Commandaria, always present on the Venetian banquets. This was mainly due to the means of transport. Of course, we did not allow timely connection. At the time, for instance, the distance between Larnaca and Nicosia was covered on a day's walk. So this was obviously a limit for the long trade of goods, of food stuff. The economy, therefore, had to be necessarily based and adapted to the territory. And this aspect will sound familiar because it's what we are trying to implement today, and that was already mentioned before, on the basis of a sustainable economy. But not only. The experience of the lockdown we had has shown us that it's possible to bring work back home. And very often, this experience, where possible, has given positive results. This just to say that maybe also this way can be explored in a future, considering to limit the transport and so the commuting of people, and try to adapt, that is the basic thing, the space of our houses in the also for our working purposes. The last aspect that has the house is in the 18th century is that is also a place to share. Lastly, one of the functions of the house was that of hospitality. Although facility to accommodate travelers have always been widespread since antiquity, hospitality was often carried out by private individuals in their homes. In the 18th century Larnaca, hospitality was offered not only to foreigners, but also to locals who move around the island due to the distances they had to cover. Hospitality was also ensured based on everyone's abilities in an indistinctive way. On this death note, a French sailor, so someone that was coming from abroad, died while he was hosted. You see, it was from Saint-Tropez. He was working on this ship called Le Postillon de Carthagène, and he died in the house of a Greek person living in Larnaca. So origin or religion, at least in the cosmopolitan context of Larnaca, made no difference. But hospitality was also assured by specific bodies, such as the consulate, of course, or hospices, such as the one of the Capuchin friars that we know existed close to in Larnaca, so in the internal part of the internal settlement, which was, however, with fee. Hospitality, though, was another of the activity possibly happening in the domestic space. Moreover, it was integrated into the urban space, but also in the rural ones sometimes, without causing change to the social and urban structure. Of course, we have also to consider that the flux of tourists and people traveling were not for sure the one we know today, but Cyprus has always been a key point for commerce and for pilgrimage. And Larnaca was, in the 18th century, really the main port and the main city. So even if numbers won't be compared to what we know today, for sure there were a lot of people coming and staying here, and they managed to integrate these hosting activities within the city without creating any kind of problem to the development of the urban structure, but also of the social one. So moving towards the end, what can we learn by considering the role of the house in the 18th century Larnaca? I believe that first of all, it makes us reflect on the social and functional role of the house, especially in light of the recent lockdown experience. The house was the space around which the life and activities of the family and the community revolved. It was a space lived and experienced from every possible point of view: birth and death, work and hospitality. The houses supported the founding elements of society, which today are often entrusted to external space. After the experience of the lockdown, many intellectuals underlined the need to return to a new form of humanism, precisely because they observed this tightening of the domestic environment, which is also reflected externally in society. Considering the function of the house in the past makes us understand the versatility of this space, especially on a conceptual level. Knowing how the house was and developed, it's useful for retracing the process that led to the emptying of function and values. It is also helpful for thinking about new models with an interdisciplinary approach, as has been done here today, having full awareness of the historical function that the home played for the individual and therefore for the community will make future planning more efficient, providing more solid foundation. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mia. Thank you for this highlighting the lessons that we can learn from the past and to show us how this lifestyle was, let's say, consistent and structured in a way that was all built around the house. And so we have been spanning from regulation to technologies to the human factor, let's say, and to culture. We run almost out of time, but I would like just to ask you 1 minute each of comment on this, let's say, triangle. Regulation, so planning, emerging technologies, and new, let's say, humanism, as Mia was labeling it. Where we should start, which is the most important factor for you, and how we can build this new, let's say, alliance with the planet and with the nature in a short term. That is the short term that is from the next crisis and the next shocks. I would start from, let's start from Mia, that is was the last to talk, and then let's close to to Nick Jarreau and to the ambassador, and let's close the session in this way. So Mia, please.
Well, I think that I found a lot of connection with between the presentation of Professor Butera and what we can actually see from the sources of the past. Basically, the suggestions, what is our problem today is all what was brought by the Industrial Revolution. So a mass production and consumerism, and also, unfortunately, because it's something that we use every day, the means of transport. We see that nowadays it's impossible to avoid all these structures, but for sure we can learn from the past and try to reduce our use of the means of transport. So to find, for example, alternative ways of work, if possible, instead of commuting every day, maybe just fewer days per week. Trying to invest in the local territory and in the local communities for our needs on different levels, not only food production, but also artifacts, clothes, and what possible. Learn also from the past to reuse, refurbish, and give a second, a third life to things, because I think also this is important. It's something that looking today at the past sounds just like it's something they used to do. We are a modern civilization. We cannot do it. But I think that, as I was saying at the beginning, if the change will start from the bottom, and possibly with the bottom-up movement, I think that something can change if then we have also a top-down action. This will be very efficient. What, in my opinion, offered us the COVID experience and the lockdown is to rethink at our lifestyle in this dimension. So in a more intimate and personal dimension, what we can really do and offer to the society and to the world in general, because I'm convinced that it's from the single action. And so also rethinking of the space, the domestic space and the space of the house will start creating a different impact on the society, and then on a more broader level.
Thank you, Mia. Salvatore, 1 minute, just not to see people leaving, because the number will decrease soon. So let's try to keep this in 1 minute.
In my opinion, the COVID pandemics has basically shown fragility, how our society have responded fragile, how we are fragile. So coming back to your question, how can we put together these regulations or governance, emerging technology, and the human factor together? Basically, what I think is that in order to cover up our fragility, we really need to discover, our way to think about technology, rediscovering sort of humanism in technology. This is the starting point and the ending point. Since technology without emotion, without feeling, without humans is just devices. We need to bring feelings, emotion in whatever we do.
Thank you also for being short. Federico, that's your overall comment on what you heard from the other two speakers.
Okay, very quickly. About this issue of the three areas connection, well, I believe that we have to can learn a lot from the analysis of the past for one main reason. People up to 200 years ago, roughly, was used to live in a world with limited resources. We are not used to do that. The way they were organized, the way they had relationships and so on, we should study the past from this point of view. I think it would be very, very important. I'll make an example. There was a period of my life, our life, when people dealing with bioarchitecture and so on, when there was a lot of people saying that you should imitate the vernacular architecture. And they were saying, look, people living in vernacular architecture was not really happy, or at least it was happy. But if I was living in a building with a vernacular architecture, I would not accept it at all, because the concept of comfort has changed. So, but from vernacular architecture, we can and we have to take out the principles. It is what happens with the true, real bioarchitecture. We have an example, and I stop, about the fact that there's a big change, technological change within the constraint of limited resources. Was the so-called industrial revolution of Middle Ages, when it started with windmills, water mills, more iron, the plug made of iron, of the horses used, and so on. The three fields, from 2 fields to 3 fields, agriculture. Well, they managed to do that. What we have to do is, by using the information and the correct reading of the past, to use the new technologies we have with a higher quality of life, by sure.
finally, Middle Ages are not so dark. That's Mia. I know that Mia loves.
If you ask me, they are not dark at all. So.
That Middle Ages are not so dark ages. We have examples also from that time. Nick, I ask you to comment the session and trying to link these three dimensions.
Yes, so just very briefly, I mean, this was all amazing how we connect the solutions of today with the solutions of the past. And to be honest, what's fascinating is that many of the solutions have been staring us in the face for more than 100 years. I mean, concentrated solar power is not a new invention. I mean, I recently saw a picture of a solar dish in Los Angeles in 1901 for pumping water. I mean, the fact that concentrated solar power wasn't used almost at all in the 20th century is really the result of a political decisions rather than anything else. The technology has always been there. Archimedes used concentrated solar power to try and defeat the Roman navy, apparently, according to the legend. And it's the same with transportation in the urban environment. Electric cars, people forget that electric cars were conceived before the internal combustion engine. People forget this. There could have been electric cars going around all the world as early as the early 20th century if a willingness had been there. So really this idea of yes, looking to the future, but also connecting that with the past is very important. And on the issue of consumerism, I think what the COVID-19 crisis has shown us is how much of what we thought was necessary wasn't. I've been working home for 3 months. I haven't commuted, I haven't flown anywhere, and with really no negative consequences. It seems that a lot of what we thought was essential wasn't. And I hope this will force us to rethink the way that we operate. And I think I'll leave it there.
Before they force us to consume again, because everybody is talking about the post-war economy. That's a way to make us, let's say, suffer because we were consuming less. This is a proposal. I think we can organize an event on Giovanni Francia, that was this brilliant Italian scientist that has been building Fresnel systems as the one we have here at the Cyprus Institute in the 60s. And they were working and they had already a very nice performance, but nobody was following him because it was too, let's say, it was too far. And it was reducing the consumption of oil in perspective. So that's interesting to dig in the past, even this close past, with these fantastic people that been, let's say, just visionaries that were opening new worlds. So let's go to our real, let's say, host that has been promoting this initiative. Back to our Fred ambassador to wrap up, let's say, and try to close, and it might be even to, let's say, to bring us to the next step of our collaboration.
Thank you, Professor Montagnino, and thank you to you all. It will be absolutely too ambitious as a task to follow your advices. But I would like only to say how much I'm grateful to all of you for bringing for the discussion from your different perspective, from your different experience, extremely inspiring proposals and description of what we have been living during this period, what can be learned from the past, and how can we look at the future with a lot of optimism. I think Professor Butera showed the way in this sense. I'm extremely happy to see the past and the present get together in showing how Italy continued to be present in Cyprus, from the Venetian time till your presence here at the Cyprus Institute and your collaboration with a prime institution. Thank you, Professor Butera, for joining us in bringing pieces from Italy in Cyprus. My true hope is to see maybe all this coming together into life in Nicosia, a city which has been designed by a Venetian engineer, a star plan which is identical to the one of Palmanova, which is also a modern city, the last divided capital in Europe, and a city which will certainly could become an experiment of all what you have been indicating. And I'm a little bit proud that the Italian embassy here in Cyprus, in Nicosia, has been for the second year granted of the green label, which is a recognition of our tentative to reduce consumption of energy, to reuse resources. And I see Professor Carlucci smiling because he knows that, and Professor Montagnino as well, that we work together, maybe with the dream, it's a dream, to make the Italian embassy even more greener by some solution. Some of them have been illustrated by Professor Carlucci. So thank you so much. I'm fully satisfied also by the number of persons that have been following us since the very beginning of our conference more than 2 hours ago. And sorry if we have been a little bit too long. I was watching at the number, both register and live on Facebook and YouTube, and the return has been much over my best expectation. This is thanks to you, thanks to the effort that you have put into this seminar. And again, I'm extremely grateful to all of you and to the Cyprus Institute.
Thank you so much. We have been very happy to co-organize, to be together. I think it has been also a very nice discussion in terms of exchange. So it was not just listening, it was trying to revert ideas each other. And I hope this, let's say, formula will be repeated in future, and we will try again to mix in front of challenges that are of our contemporary times, ideas from the past, and knowledge from today. That's, I think, something that should be a characteristic of our way of, it's the Italian way, if you want. It's the way to always take a look at the past and try to design the future. So thank you very much for being together. And thanks to everybody that has been following us in the different channels. I saw that we had many contacts, and most of them are still around. So thank you for everything, and let's plan the next. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
everybody. Yeah.